Hey guys, good to have you here. Welcome, welcome. Daxton and Alec, good to see you guys here. We have a third viewer, not quite sure who that is yet, but we're glad to have you here. Today's been pretty alright. Kind of a slow day. Jacob, welcome, welcome. Glad you guys were able to join. And I'm grateful you guys were able to make it, even with me moving it a day earlier for today instead of tomorrow. So I'm glad you guys were able to be here. We're gonna wait just a minute before we really get going and start the video for the Hope Works as we do each week. So just hang out for a minute. You know, have a quick chat with each other in the chat there, and yeah, we'll get going here in a minute. Alec, that sounds like an absolute great place to watch with some ice cream. I'm glad that you've got some ice cream for some comfort food there. Just make sure that you actually participate. You know, read the scriptures as they come up. Comment as things pop up as well. You know, we are gonna get started into the video here for the Hope Works talk. I do hope you guys enjoy it as always. So enjoy. I will. We'll talk to you again afterwards. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. Let me figure this out. Totally didn't realize you guys couldn't hear it. I'm so sorry. Alright, let's try... Hang on just a second. I'm so sorry. Totally thought it was working. Oh, we had it there for a second. There we go. Let's try again.
About a year and a half ago, I knew exactly what I was going to do with my life. I had it all figured out. I was ready. I was all in. I was going to go at it. I'm ready to go. I finally figured this thing out. I'm ready to go full force. I'm about to take off, and I go, and I failed. Houston, we have a problem. No, Houston, we're still in Houston. And so I failed. And it completely changed my perspective of my relationship with God and who I am. I really think that this perspective that I learned in this process, that if you can just bear with me, stay with me till the end, I promise it will be worth it. It completely changed my perspective. I think potentially it could change yours too. Before I go there, though, I should take you back to when I was a kid. Little kid. I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, and I was always a performer ever since I was a kid. Like even in the third grade, I remember my answer machine. My mom remembers, she's here too. She's probably thinking like, this is true, you know. She's like, on the answer machine, it was, you have reached 385-7803. We're not home right now, as you can see. So leave a message at the tone, and we'll get back to you on our telephone. Peace. That was my answer machine. But I was always performing, I always did. And high school's the same thing. I was always involved in like performance and all of that. I did soccer, all that kind of stuff. I just didn't really have a care in the world. Everything was great, life was good. Went on my mission, came home from my mission, learned Portuguese. Everything was good, got into college. When I was in college, same thing. I just loved to anytime like an opportunity came up, I just would take it. I remember one time I was actually sitting down, before, I went to an event. My friend, he said, hey, Steven, there's this event on campus. It's an open mic. It's a comedy show. It's an open mic show. You should go. So I said, sure, cool. That'd be really cool. And so what they did is they had open mic night. People would come in and they would do like 3 minutes of comedy. I was like, that's pretty cool. I'll watch. So I went. I was there a little bit late. So I came in the back. Everything was dark. I sneak in. I come in and I sit down. And all of a sudden I see on the stage the guy, he's on the mic already. And he's like, hey, that was the last comedian. If anybody else wants to get up, go ahead and come up. And I wasn't planning on getting up. I had never done comedy in my life, but I'd always kind of told jokes to my friends and stuff like that and told stories and stuff. And so I just sat there and I was like, I'm just gonna tell some jokes then. I'm gonna get up. So I went in, I told some jokes, just random. Did 3 minutes, but I loved to entertain, so I always did it. I remember they had an audition for the mascot. I went out and I was like, you know what? I'll just go out and I'll just do it. So I did it. I was the mascot. I loved it. And I felt like it was just me. I started doing stand-up comedy. I can't even tell you, when I would be on a stage, it would just feel like I was just me. Like it was like they say a fish in water, man. I felt like I was a fish just doing a backstroke. I don't know if you've even seen a fish. Not that I felt that I was amazing at it, but it just felt comfortable to me. And so at the end of college, right, the last day of school, this is the last day of school, literally the very last day of college. I took biology, 100 is the very first one, auditorium like this size, 350 people in this place. All these people come, we had to be there for the last day because we had to take a test. So we all get there, everybody's in there, and I'm walking past, and I'm like getting there right as the bell rings, and I'm like, oh shoot, there was this one empty seat. I'm like, oh, and there's this cute girl there too. I like literally passed by, I said, hey, wait, let me sit down. I find out later, the girl ended up becoming my wife. She actually saved a seat hoping that I would sit by her. And I did. And the rest is history. And so we went through the whole, the whole spiel. We got married. And then so when you get married, you're like, yeah, well, let's get married. Yeah, we want to get married. You get married, you're like, well, let's have some kids. I'm like, yeah, let's have some kids. And you're like, whoa. Yeah, let's do that, And this whole time, I'm still kind of just doing my thing. I really didn't have a job. I was just doing comedy. I was doing entertainment. I was doing acting. And so I was like, man, should I get something that's consistent? All the people were like, you probably should. They're like, yeah, of course. And so that's how I thought. I was like, well, I got to get a job. And it's funny because there was a job. I had just entertained for a company. I just entertained for him at a corporate event. I was like, I was about to say audition. It feels like it sometimes. I was like, you know what, I'll just apply for that job. I'll get the job, you'll see how it goes. I get the job, just get some health insurance, right? To get health insurance. Yeah, get a job for health insurance. Some people are looking at me like, yes, you need. Some of the people are like, health insurance, health insurance. But I get the job. I remember the first day I went to work, and so I wasn't really technical. It was a technology company. I get there the first day, and this is not even like the first week. This is the first day of work. I get there, I'm like, man, what? But to this point, you don't just sit at a desk, for 8 hours straight. People are looking at me like, what in the world? But I'm just saying, I've never in my life, even in college, had to sit there for 8 hours, just sitting there, just like a prison, just like bars were just in front of me. I'm just like, seriously, this is what it felt like to me. And I get home, and I remember I got home, didn't even kiss my wife. I just went past her, I went straight back to the room, and I went on my bed, and seriously, honestly, I sat there and I cried. Straight up. And I remember I sat there and I cried, and I remember I thought to myself, I was like, man, Heavenly Father, what in the world am I doing? And I just sat there and I was like, I prayed. I said, man, I just pray. I with Danny, my wife, that's her name. I said, I pray. I just wish you'd just come in here and just give me a hug. About a minute later, she comes in. I don't know, she's sensitive to the spirit. She comes right in, gives me a hug, gives me a kiss too. Little bonus. Just saying. And I'm just, it made it feel a bit better. But I didn't give up though, because I'm Stephen Jones. I'm not gonna quit this job, and I stayed with the job. Everything started getting better. I started making decent money. I started making, things started working out, but I still felt like I was in prison. I still did comedy and entertainment on the side. And so just to make a long story short, in 4 years, I had 4 different jobs. Just bounce to bounce to bounce, not fulfilled. Okay, let's try this. Okay, no, change it up. Okay, let me try it again. No, that's not working. Okay, let me try it again. Trying to figure out, who am I? Who's Stephen Jones? Who am I? What am I doing? Man, I'm a comedian, man. I'm an entertainer, man. And what am I doing sitting behind a desk? Man, I don't belong behind no desk. And so, I finally get to this point. My last sales job, I get to this point where I'm just like, you know what? I remember the day. I was like, man, I gotta figure this out. A friend of mine actually sent me this video from Steve Harvey. It was really cool. He said, in this video, it was a day, I was low, man. I was low. He randomly calls me. I was at work at my desk, and I'm like, I don't know if you can relate. I'm just sitting at my desk. I'm like I'm just having this anxiety attack. Nothing's even going on. I'm like, I just gotta get out. I just took a walk, right? And he's like, hey, man, you need to check out this video. Steve Harvey says this. He goes, there's a difference between your gift and your talent. He said, talents and gifts are different, right? See, your gift is different. He said, people think, he's a comedian. He goes, people think that my gift is that I'm funny. My talent is that I'm funny. My gift is that I can take information, I can recode it, and I can make you laugh. I can take information, I can recode it, I can inspire you. I can take information, I can recode it, I can motivate you. And I was like, man, that's kind of how I am, right? I love to that's me. And so I just, you know what? I thought about this for a long time, and I was like, man, what am I gonna do? What am I doing with my life? And I came to this conclusion. And I came up with a question, honestly, a question that I've been able to use that I can fall back on anytime I have any kind of thing. And the question that I ask myself now is, will this matter in 1,000 years? If it doesn't matter in 1,000 years, I don't want to do it. If it's a project, if it's anything that I'm even the small stuff on the day-to-day, I'm talking about the day-to-day. If I'm like, I remember just the other day, I put the phrase on my screen on my computer, right? And I remember my wife and I, we were all like frustrated with each other, and I came in the room, I was like, man, you know how it is if you're married. I'm like, okay. And I walk in the room, and on the screen, will it matter in 1,000 years? I'm like, no. I'm sorry, I was tripping. But if it doesn't matter in 1,000 years, I don't want to do it. I don't want to care about it. I don't want to worry about it. If it doesn't matter in 1,000 years, it doesn't matter to me. And so I was like, okay. So I kind of changed it up. I started running into a lot of religion teachers. And I was like, man, I want to teach, man. It's like, teaching is like being on a stage. I love it. I can use my gift. It doesn't matter, I don't have to be funny. I can still use humor, I can still teach, I can still put an influence on some other people. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna teach. So there's this program, and honestly, it's really hard to get into. It's kind of complete, it's kind of long. So I went for it, I went in the program, and I started going for it while I'm still working. I'm still working at this time, still working, still trying to be a teacher, trying to do this stuff, being a teacher. And I remember the first day that I taught, oh my gosh, oh my goodness, I was like, hey, I was like, I love this. I was like, man, I gotta do this. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So then one day I was praying, I was like, hey, Father, what should I do, man? This stuff is just getting heavy. I don't know where I'm gonna go. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. It's just a lot of time. I'm spending all these hours. And then all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I don't know if I should go for it. And I was like, I'm just gonna act. And I was like, hold up. I'm gonna quit my job. I'm just gonna act. I'll act, and the gigs that I get there, I can just do a few gigs and make decent money, and then I can just focus on teaching. And then I'll just act. Literally. It wasn't even the words what I meant, but you know what I'm saying? I was like, that's it, I'm gonna act. So then I went in, the next couple of days, I went into my work, and I was like, hey, I wanna quit. I'm like, what, you wanna quit? Yeah, I'm gonna quit. Well, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna act. But I'm gonna teach. I'm gonna be a teacher. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm in this program, I'm gonna be a teacher. So I went all in. I quit my job, went all in. I made as much money or even more than I had ever made when I was just doing my thing, doing sales. I did. That whole time, right? And so I'm teaching, I'm loving it. Things are going really well. April's when they hire. That's the decision. I'm thinking things are going well. I get up to the point, I'm ready to go. They're like, hey, we're gonna send you an email. When you get the email, you'll know if you're gonna be hired or not. So I'm ready. I'm like, okay, if I don't get hired, okay, that's, I'm just gonna, how you kind of psych up yourself like that. If I don't get hired, whatever, I'll just do whatever, man. I'll just keep acting. That's what I'm gonna do, But if I do get it, man, I'm gonna love it because it's gonna matter in 1,000 years, right? So I get there and I go, and I'm like, okay, I open up the email. I'm like, okay, here we go. Open up the email. I open it up, and it says, we regret to inform you, blah, blah, blah. If you're in HR, if you say, we regret to inform you, just period. We don't read the rest. We don't read the rest. Those 3 paragraphs, it's a waste. We regret, that's it. That's all we need to know. I'm like, okay then, all right. What in the world am I gonna do? I quit my job, man. I quit my job. I got 2 kids. And I thought this was gonna happen. I got an email. So I'm like, okay, that's all good. No thing, it's all good, I'm good. That was the first day. Next day I was like, what in the world, what they think? What am I just saying, like, what? Man, I ran into somebody else that was in the program. What happened, man? Where'd you? Yeah, I got hired. I'm like, oh, you did. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, okay. Oh, so what you doing then? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I know. Good. Have a good time. I bet that's gonna matter in 1,000 years. I bet it's gonna be good. Yeah. That's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Appreciate it. Yeah. A week later, they come up to me. He said, hey, can I come to your class? I said, okay. So I'm still teaching, even though I know I'm not gonna teach. It's like, wow, this really feels great, you know? But it was good. I loved to teach, though. I loved it. I still loved it. And so he comes to my class, and he's one of the people who's they basically have a teacher who's like a trainer. And he comes up and he's like, hey, I know it's some bad news to hear. Wanted to see if you'd still be willing to student teach. Maybe something would come open. I said, sure. But then I thought about it. I was like, man, but it's still so heavy to weigh these two things. I'm weighing both of these things. How am I gonna juggle all this stuff? I'm talking to my wife. She's like, yeah, how are we gonna juggle this? We gotta, you know, I'm not saying, but it's logical. I gotta provide for my family, right? And so you know what I said? Well, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna act. But this way, a little bit different. I said, you know what? I'm just gonna say no. If I say no to continue to student teach, I'll know how I feel. I'll just have to do something, and maybe it won't feel right, and then maybe I'll change my mind or something. So I'll go at it, and I was like, I can't. I gotta provide for my family. I gotta put that first. And he was like, I understand. Last day of class, I was like, oh my gosh, man, I gotta keep teaching. I was like, I gotta keep teaching. So I go back to him, I'm like, hey man, I wanna keep teaching. And he's like, that's funny you say that. There actually was an opening that just happened up in another high school. So if you wanna keep student teaching, you can. I was like, yep, all right. So I went and continued to teach. Long story short, we get to the point where I'm teaching, I'm getting ready for the year. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I get a call, and they're like, hey, Stephen, I want to meet with you. So-and-so from the directors of all the teachers, they want to give you a call, want you to be with your wife. I'm like, oh, shoot, this is going to happen. I think this is it. So they call me, and I'm like, okay, with my wife in there, we're sitting there, and I'm like, okay, we're ready, okay. And he's like, yeah, Stephen, we want to know if you'd be willing to move your family to Arizona. And we were like, okay. But we're like, okay. So we got off the phone, he's like, look, I understand that it's kind of out of nowhere, and it is a big choice, so I'll let you think about it. Tell us in the weekend, right? Come back, the more I thought about it, the more it didn't feel right. Just didn't feel right. I don't know why, but it didn't feel right. So I go, and I'm like, okay. I went to him, I called him on the phone, and I was like, I regret to inform you, I'm just playing. I didn't say that. I was very grateful for the opportunity, but I gotta do what's best for my family. It just didn't feel right. And so I basically just, it was crazy, but I was like, no, they're like, well, we understand. You can still student teach. I said, for real? They said, yeah, you can still student teach. I was like, okay. So I'm still back in it. So I'm still student teaching. They're like, well, we don't know what the competition is gonna be like. The earliest you could probably get hired would probably be like the next round, April. I'm like, that's fine, whatever. I love to teach. I'm gonna teach. So I'm sitting there getting ready to teach. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, 2 months later, I'm just sitting at my computer. I remember it was 6:13. I get a phone call. Phone call comes in, bing, bing, bing. Well, actually, it was like, well, you know how it is nowadays. Anyway, so I pick it up. I didn't know who it was. I didn't save the number, right? And I'm like, hey, Stephen, this is so-and-so, director, da-da-da-da-da. Want to see if you'd be willing to take an offer here in Utah. And actually starts like right now. You want to take it right now? Yes. So I took it. I took the job. I was like, oh my gosh. I remember the next day I was like, yes, I trust you. At that point, I mean, I failed to even say this, but it was hard. It was crazy. In those 2 months, man, we were all of a sudden, since I said no to Arizona, I wasn't gigs just stopped. They just stopped. They stopped. I was like, man, I really got to the point where I was like, I don't even know. First time in my life, I'm like, I don't know how we're gonna, this, man, usually I forget to pay the rent because I just forget to pay the rent. This time I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to pay the rent. I'm serious. And so it just came at the perfect time. And so I really knew that God knew me, really knew me. He made me stretch. He made me wait on it. He made me wait on it, made me wait on it. And so now I teach, literally. I've been only teaching for like the last 4 weeks. And the first week that I taught, one of the lessons that we talked about is just religion at a high school. And one of the lessons we talked about how to receive spiritual knowledge, how to acquire spiritual knowledge. Talked about how if you really want to sincerely know, you can ask, seek, and knock, and it will be open unto you. But he can speak to us. If he speaks to us in our mind and in our heart, he can let us know that it's true. And God is the source of all truth. If you want to know something that's true, you can ask him. And so one of the kids after the end of the class, he comes to me and he's like, "Hey, Brother Jones," that's what they call me. He said, "Brother Jones, I know this is pretty basic, but how can I know if Jesus is who he says that he is? How can I know that he is who he says that he is?" I said, "Well, what are we talking about?" I said, "Well, you can ask him." He said, "Yeah, I remember we talked about that." I said, "Well, do you really want to know?" He said, "Yeah, I really want to know." I said, "Well, how are you going to know if he's talking to you?" He said, "Well," I said, "Well, how does he talk to you now?" He said, "Well, usually when I feel like he's talking to me, I feel like, this certain kind of way," and he's explained it to me. I said, "Okay, that's your baseline, man. That's your baseline." I said, "Well, if you haven't asked him, you got to ask God. Ask him." And so he said, "Okay." And so I said, "Hey, man, if whatever you find out, man, I'd love to know how it goes." I'm not saying like, "Hey, go home this week." I wasn't like that. I was like, "Whenever you figure this out, man, I'd love to hear about it." And he said, "Okay." So about 2 weeks ago, he comes up to me after class and he's like, "Hey, I wanted to ask you something. I want to tell you, Brother Jones, this weekend over the break, I was up, we went up in a cabin and I went up and I took the four-wheeler up on this island and I went off by myself. Nobody really goes up in that direction. I went up in by myself and I took the four-wheeler up. I parked it, put it to the side. I sat down, I put it to the side, and I got down on my knees and I prayed to God. And I asked him about his son. And he said, he answered me. He answered me. Man, that's gonna matter in 1,000 years, people. I was like, man, I love my job, man. I love my job. Listen, this is just one person. This is just one man. I'm just one man. I know there's somebody out there, and I thought about this talk forever. You could ask my wife, and I was like, man, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why they're calling me. They literally actually called me the week that I quit my job about this thing. I know it's God's hand in my life. I know that. And hopefully there's somebody out there. I don't know, whatever you are worried about, there's probably somebody out there. I'm talking to you directly right now. If you're trying to keep a job just for health insurance, but you know you should be doing something else because you really know deep and down inside that whatever that thing is that you're trying to do, you hadn't done it yet because you want health insurance. Figure it out how you're gonna, whatever it is that you gotta do. You're worried about some little petty stuff, forget about it, man. It's not gonna matter in 1,000 years. So before I go, I honestly, all of us here, wherever in the world, YouTube, whatever it is, I just have this one question. I got two questions. What are you worrying about right now? What are you worried about right now that ain't gonna matter in 1,000 years? And the last question is, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do that's gonna matter in 1,000 years? Thank you.
Hey guys, a couple more people to join us, so welcome, Elder Travis, welcome. Glad you guys were able to join in. Daxon says he knows him, which is pretty cool, or that he's met him in person, so that's pretty cool. Did you meet him at like a seminar or something, or like a devotional, or was it something else? Just curious, Daxton. I actually really love this guy's talk. I know that I've listened to this before, but it's been a really long time, so I actually didn't remember anything that he really said from the first time I watched it, because I think it was probably on my mission like 4 or 5 years ago. But this is kind of incredible to me, actually, because I've been worrying about a couple things in my life, specifically because I'm trying to make a change. I'm trying to follow my passion and my dream for my life, and looking at it logistically, it just seems too impossible. It seems like everything that I have every reason not to do, not to go after my dream. But this kind of speaks to me a lot, because he. Are you about to tell me I'm? Oh, Daxton. Okay. I thought you were about to tell me I was muted again. I hope I'm not muted. I'm pretty sure I'm not muted. Anyway, Daxton sent me a little snippet about how he met him, so we'll read this here in a second. But I think that it's really cool because this specifically speaks to me about the fact that I just need to trust. I need to trust God that if I follow my dream, if I follow that passion, that I'll end up where I need to be. And it'll take however long it takes. That sometimes a no is not necessarily always a no forever. Sometimes a no is just a no for now, or not yet, and that's okay. Daxton, a little bit, says, I met him when our neighbor, brother Dean, was good friends with him. Oh, that's cool. And he came and did a devotional talk about if you can't believe in God, take notes in your journal, and about God's hand. And if you still don't see God in your life, look again, because there's more than enough God's hand in your life. And he brought in 45 banker boxes full of notebooks and notebooks of ways he's seen God's hand in his life. That's really cool, actually. Yeah, I mean, he seems like a really cool dude. I won't show the picture because it'll mess up my camera. 4 to 5. Gotcha. 4 to 5 boxes of notebooks. I won't show the picture. It'll mess up the zoom on my camera, and I don't want to send it to myself to pull it up on the computer or whatever. So, but it's fine. You have a picture. Really cool, actually. That's freaking awesome. Does anybody have any quick comments about this video before we kind of get moving today? I'm sorry, that is my dog. If anybody's typing, that's totally fine. We'll still kind of stay, but I also want to show you guys something as well. Oh, hey, real quick. Alex says, it seems significant that in the vid he points out how he had to be patient for things to work out. Also the jumps. Yeah, sorry about my dog. She's a little bit antsy today because normally we do things on Wednesday when I'm at home more throughout the day as I work from home. But I work in my office on Tuesday. Look, she's just behind me in the background there. So I didn't really have a lot of time to hang out with her today, so she's a little antsy. But anyway, yeah, definitely is very significant in his video that he's definitely very patient and sorry, hold on, puppy. Sorry. Hopefully she doesn't bark anymore. Yeah, so definitely he was very patient, but he also seeked for the revelation throughout the whole process. A lot of time, make sure that where he was at, he felt comfortable and he felt was right. Absolutely. If anybody has any more thoughts on the video, please continue to type. In the meantime, I do want to show you this because this is really cool. So here. This was released earlier today at, this is 1:40-ish, which is really cool. So the church actually purchased the Kirtland Temple grounds and the Kirtland Temple, as well as some other historical sites from the Community of Christ. So if you're not aware, the Community of Christ is an offshoot branch of the church that, as the saints moved west to come to Utah with Brigham Young and all the pioneers that came over west, right? There was a group of the church that stayed back on the east, and part of that group were some some very influential members of the original members of the church. It actually included Emma Smith as well, and so there was a lot of people that stayed behind because they believed that after Joseph was martyred, that it should actually be his son, Joseph's son, to be called as the prophet, even though he was like 4 or 5 years old at the time. They believed that this mantle of prophet should be more a bloodline thing, and obviously we don't believe that in the church. We believe it to be a calling from God, to be the most senior apostle, which has a lot of backing from the Bible with Peter and whatnot, with the original 12 apostles. But the Community of Christ has owned the Kirtland Temple because it was all under Emma Smith's name when they left and the pioneers came west. So the Kirtland Temple, as well as a lot of other historical housing sites and other things that the church owned, were actually owned under the name of Emma or Joseph at the time. And so when Joseph dies and when he's killed, those properties end up in Emma's name, and they end up staying with the church that stays in the east. So the Community of Christ is what that church ends up being. But the church actually just purchased the Kirtland Temple, and if we scroll down a little bit, it actually gives a list, and we'll look at those pictures here in just a second too. But this is what was purchased from the Community of Christ. So it was the Kirtland Temple, the Smith family homestead, and all these after the Kirtland Temple. These other ones here are actually in Nauvoo, and not in Kirtland. So the Smith family homestead, the Mansion House, the Nauvoo House, and the Red Brick Store, which is really cool. My family actually had an opportunity 2 years ago to go out and see the Nauvoo historical sites. We actually went and saw these. We didn't go inside the Mansion House and some of these other ones that were owned by the Community of Christ, because scheduling a tour with them was kind of a bit hard at the time. We did go inside the Red Brick Store, which was really cool. And then there was some other historical documents purchased, so manuscripts of the Bible that Joseph used to translate the Bible, which is really cool. 7 letters from Joseph Smith to his wife, to Emma. John Whitmer's History of the Church. This is a really cool document. John Whitmer was one of the original, I believe he was one of the original historians for the church. Original portraits of Joseph and Emma, that's really cool. The cornerstone of the Nauvoo House. The original door of Liberty Jail, that's really cool. And a document with the title of Characters which may contain a sample of inscriptions from the gold plates. Also really cool. So all of these things were purchased by the church. And then it also said that a little bit later in the article, this is kind of a little bit about the article about the Kirtland Temple. It does say in here that the church is not planning to dedicate the Kirtland Temple as an actual temple, but they're planning to currently just leave it as a historical site, or building anyway. So anyway, this is just some pictures here. It's like, this is the Mansion House. This is in Nauvoo, right next to the Red Brick Store. So I've seen the outside. It also has a little grave off to the side, kind of in the back here. So here's the Nauvoo House. The Smith family homestead. This is the Red Brick Store. I've been in this. They actually used to hold like priesthood meetings at the top in the top portion of this house, and Joseph had an office that was kind of in the back, which was pretty cool. This is the Kirtland, Ohio Temple. This is seen from the window of Joseph and Emma's home, which I think the church already owns. So there's the temple kind of situated there. Just click through some of the rest of these. So actually really cool. I mean, the Kirtland Temple is the first temple dedicated and the first temple built in this dispensation since the church was restored. Very cool temple. This temple is also the temple that they that I believe it was Parley P. Pratt that wrote hymn number 2, which is what's it called? Spirit of Fire or something like that. Hold on, let me pull it up. I forget what it's called. Spirit of God. That's what it's called. My bad. So there's actually a really cool story. When this temple was dedicated, a lot of people claimed that a lot of the people that were outside the temple, that weren't even in the dedication, claimed to look, and when they looked at the temple, that it appeared to be on fire because of how bright it was shining, and that people could, and the people recounted that there was almost, that they could sense like an angelic presence essentially around the temple, which is really cool. So this happened today. This was announced today that the church had purchased all this stuff here. So really cool. Just wanted to show that to you guys. We'll jump into our study today. Hopefully I've got the whole stuff figured out, so it's not so. Last week it was a little difficult, but I'm pretty sure I've got everything figured out. So, welcome. I'm so glad you guys could be here. Again, so just as anyone, pretty sure everybody's already been here before. Anybody that might not be here, this is Build Your Ark. This is just a stream once a week where we get together, we study the Come Follow Me manual. Just as a reminder, I have not studied any of this material beforehand, so this is my first impressions. This is your first impressions, hopefully, or maybe not. Maybe it's your second, third, and fourth impressions, whatever. But hopefully the idea is that we come together, we study together, we learn together, instead of me just getting here and being, hey, I studied this, here's the information. I don't want to tell you guys what to believe or how to interpret the scriptures. That's for the Spirit to decide. So hopefully, as we study together today, you'll get something out of it. That's the hope. Perfect. So today we're going to be studying in 2 Nephi 20 and 20 through 25. Let me just write my note here. Were you on your mission when... Yes, I was. I was on my mission when Come Follow Me released. So there were a lot of changes that happened while I was on my mission. I started my mission from end of 2017 to the end of 2019. Okay? So, like, when I left on my mission, we still had 3-hour church. Let me tell you, getting an investigator to come to 3-hour church was impossible. Impossible to get anybody to come when you tell them church is 3 hours. So difficult, right? Also, when I left on my mission, President Monson was still the prophet. President Monson died a couple months into my mission. It was like two months into my mission when President Nelson was called as the prophet in early 2018. I also saw the release of the Preach My Gospel manual, the second version or whatever. That happened towards the end of my mission. The revised missionary handbook came out on my mission. Church was shortened to 2 hours. Come Follow Me came out. Ministering happened. So the ministering changed from home teachers to ministering happened. A bunch of stuff happened in my mission. So it was quite the adjustment. Every time we watched conference, we were ready for another adjustment to be made in the mission. The new communication standards happened on my mission. Sisters getting to wear pants happened on my mission, which wasn't a huge deal for me as an elder, but it was a massive deal for our sisters. They were super excited. So a lot of stuff changed, which is really cool. Okay, so not impossible. Wait, what did I say was impossible? I'm confused. Did I say something? Hold on. What? Huh? Just talking about a lot of stuff happening. A lot of stuff happened while I was gone on my mission, which is really cool. Yeah, all of those adjustments happened pre-COVID, which is also nuts, right? The church definitely had some premonition there, some revelation that the Lord was definitely guiding his church, preparing for COVID to happen. 3-hour church. Oh yeah, no, but it felt pretty impossible. I know that like obviously you dealt with 3-hour church on your mission, Dad, but 3-hour church for the first 2 months of my mission felt so impossible to get anybody to come to church. I don't think I had any investigators in the first 2 months, 3 months of my mission. No, because it wasn't until April, so it was like 6 months of my mission, almost, where I was trying to get people to come to 3-hour church, and I think I maybe had 2 people ever come to 3-hour church. And it was so hard to get them to come. It was like, it's like trying to get like a kid to go to the dentist to have teeth pulled. It's so hard sometimes. Like people, because people are so used to outside of the church, right? People that are Catholics, Baptists, whatever, like their congregations meet for like an hour, right? And so like they're used to like 1 hour church. They go, they sit down, they hear some worship, like they hear a pastor preach, and then they're done. Like most people aren't used to having to go to like a class where they have to kind of like participate and study together and whatnot. Like they're not used to that. Yeah, and they drink wine, right? Instead of water for the sacrament or communion, as a lot of them call it, right? And so, anyway, so like it was hard. Like getting a kid to go to the dentist to get teeth pulled willingly. I would say getting a kid to go to the dentist willingly or unwillingly is still hard. Just saying. But 3-hour church was like, anybody would be like, we'd invite people to church and they go like, yeah, like, and we go, yeah, it starts at 10 and it runs till 1 o'clock. And they go, what? Like, yeah, church is 3 hours. And then they would immediately be like, I don't know if I'll be able to make it. And then they always had an excuse after we told them that. After we told them how long church was. It was hard. And a lot of time we were like, well, you just come for the first hour and see how you like it or whatever. Even then, it was still pretty hard after we told them it was 3 hours. Anyway. My mission was fun. Let's say that. We were always dealing with another adjustment, which was a lot of fun. Very stressful sometimes. But it was great. It was great. We loved it. Let's get into studying. So that we are not entirely, so that we accomplish the purpose of today's stream, right? We get a little bit of studying in. We're already down to 40 minutes left because the whole issues with the video. Complain. I know, Dad. You walk to school uphill both ways. Whatever. I get it. Our definition of difficult is different. I understand. Anyway. All right. So 2 Nephi 20 through 25. I guess the topic is we rejoice in Christ, which is a cool topic. Here we go. So the writings of Isaiah include strong warnings, but they also offer hope and joy. This is one reason Nephi included them in his record. Quote, I write some of the words of Isaiah. He said, quote, that whoso shall receive these words may lift up their hearts and rejoice. In a sense, the invitation to read Isaiah's writings is an invitation to rejoice. You can take delight, as Nephi did, in Isaiah's prophecies about the gathering of Israel and the coming of the Messiah and the peace promised to the righteous. You can rejoice to live in the prophesied day when the Lord has set up an ensign for the nations and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel. When you thirst after righteousness, you can, with joy, draw water out of the wells of salvation. In other words, you can rejoice in Christ. Whoa. Sorry, hold on. Love this. But also, does anyone else not quite feel like Nephi does here? Where you just love Isaiah, right? Right. It says, in sense, the invitation to read Isaiah's writings is an invitation to rejoice. I'm not exactly sure that I feel rejoiceful when I read Isaiah. I feel more confounded. But that might just be me. I hope that's not just me. But in some regards, when I do read Isaiah, like as we have done in the last couple weeks, there has been some really cool things that I've learned from Isaiah that have brought me some joy in my life as well. So kind of neat there. Okay, so let's jump in to some study here. So I can find peace in Jesus Christ. Lehi's children had a problem with contention. The problem got worse in future generations, leading to division, captivity, sorrow, and destruction. That's why we have the war chapters. And contention continues to be a problem today. With all of that in mind, think about the prophecies in 2 Nephi 21 through 22 and consider how the Savior is fulfilling these prophecies. What does the prophecy that the wolf will dwell with the lamb mean to you? Ponder what you can do to be a peacemaker. Okay, so let's take a look here at these chapters. And look at that, you guys can see it. Perfect. Okay. So, chapter 21 here is fairly a decent size, so we'll read just I'll start with reading just chapter 21, and then we can talk about some stuff. We can talk about it a little bit, and then if we want to keep reading, we can read in 22. If not, we can just move on to the next section, which kind of also dives into chapter 21 as well. Right. So as we read, consider about being what a peacemaker is. And how you can be a better peacemaker in your life, and maybe specifically with your family and friends, as those are kind of the most important relationships that we have in most of our lives. Chapter 21. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord, and shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord, and he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears. But with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. The lamb also shall dwell with the lamb, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and fatling together, and the little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear shall feed, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. And the suckling child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice's den. And they shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the water covers the seas. And in the day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left, from Assyria and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The envy of Ephraim also shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. But they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines towards the west. They shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. And the Lord shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea, and with his mighty wind he shall shake his hand over the river, and shall smite it even the seven streams, and make men go over dry shod. And there shall be a highway for the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, like as it was to Israel in the day that he came up out of the land of Egypt. Okay. A lot of different symbolism there. But what do you guys see in there that helps you kind of understand being a peacemaker and how you might be a better peacemaker in your life with maybe your family or your friends, maybe your coworkers, if you have a problem with coworkers, right? What in there kind of speaks to you today? I'll give you a second while I write some of my own notes. Okay, so a couple thoughts. Firstly, I mean, it's specifically about being a peacemaker, right? I think a lot about the fact that one of the titles of Christ is the Prince of Peace, right? So to be a peacemaker is almost, could almost be synonymous, and probably, could. This is my opinion, but could be said to be synonymous with being a disciple of Christ. And really striving to provide a peace to everyone you're around. There's been a lot of, recently I can think of a couple conference talks even that talk about being peacemakers in the world that we live in with how chaotic and hectic everything is. My first initial thought is specifically, as this talks about being an ensign, right here. Starts talking about it in chapter 12 or in verse 12 here, where he talks about raising up an ensign for all nations, for everybody, right? If you don't know, an ensign is a standard, right? I looked up the definition real quick. It's if you look at the dictionary. The definition in the Oxford Dictionary talks about it being a flag or a standard. It talks about it specifically in the context of being, military or whatever. But it is kind of this idea of being an example, essentially, right? It's being this higher standard or this higher level of holding ourselves accountable, right, to this standard, to this ensign. I think in terms of being a peacemaker, in terms of being more like Christ and being more his disciple, right? We have the opportunity to be that example that holds that ensign, that holds that standard for everybody, that for nations to see, right? To see that we hold ourselves to that standard. I've had experience particularly in the fact that while I was on my mission, particularly while I was on my mission, that we had people that would come to us, and you might have heard this, but this And I thought it was kind of weird, but it actually happened to me that somebody came up and said, you guys just feel different. You look different. You hold yourselves better and happier than most people I've ever seen, right? It just feels different being around you. And I never really understood that until someone actually said it to me. And even when that person did, I still didn't really understand what they were talking about. Because to me, it was just me being me, right? It was me doing the things I knew were right. But that's what made me different. That's what made me an example. That's what made me the ensign for the people I was around, right? I was able to be there to be that example, to hold that standard. And in turn, people notice, right? The same idea as it talks about in the Bible of being a light on the hill and not covering up your candle or your bushel, I think is what it talks about, right? My other thought is that there's a lot of symbolism at the beginning of this chapter that specifically talks about, right, all of these, wolf lying with the lamb, the leopard with the kid, the young lion with the fatling, the cow and the bear, the lion and the ox, right? I don't know what an asp is. If anyone knows what an asp is, if you would throw it in the chat, enlighten all of us. I also don't know what a cockatrice is, so that would be helpful to know as well. I can look those up here in a second as well. But my biggest thing when I look at this, and I look at this symbolism between all of these opposites, right, is the fact that it's almost as if they were pitted against each other for a reason, right? The lion, or the wolf and the lamb, right? The lion, the fatling, the cow, the bear, the ox, the lion, right? They're all pitted against each other to provide this symbolism of almost the predator and the prey, or someone that might have wronged you versus someone that was wronged. And I think about, in terms of being a peacemaker, that it's our responsibility and it's our job to make sure that we're not trying to get even. We're not trying to get revenge. That we forgive those that have wronged us. And that's okay. That's what God would have us do, right? And when Jesus was on the earth in the Bible, in the New Testament, he talks about when you're wronged, right? When someone slaps your cheek, turn to them the other. They get slapped on this cheek, and they're like, okay, now this cheek, right? Which seems a little weird, but it's okay to forgive. And in fact, that's what we're commanded to do. We're commanded to forgive, as it says as Jesus said, 70 times 7, right? A cockatrice is a mythical beast, essentially a two-legged dragon, wyvern, or serpent-like creature with a rooster's head. Huh. I don't know what to take from that. A cockatrice, a child in the cockatrice's den? Huh. An asp is a poisonous snake. What? A suckling child shall play on the hole of an asp. I don't understand that. I don't understand that imagery. A poisonous snake. Greek word that means viper. Believed that an asp is referred to what is known as an Egyptian cobra. Looks like a dragon. Referred to anyone as several venomous. I just can't see that in my head. A poisonous snake, or a suckling child hanging on the hole of an asp. I don't get that one. I understand maybe the cockatrice's den, right? If that's kind of this two-legged weird wyvern dragon looking thing, right? As Daxton kind of put it in the chat here. Like a weaned child should be put in the hand of the cockatrice's den, right? It's essentially putting a very innocent, defenseless child in the den of something that is very dangerous, right? So I understand that one. I don't understand the imagery of this sucking child on the hole of an asp, because I don't quite understand where the hole of the asp is. Is it its mouth? I don't understand. But we'll keep going. So in terms of the symbolism here, in chapter 21, right? What stands out to you guys? Is there anything else that stands out to you guys, particularly about being a peacemaker? Let me ask you that question. Or anyone want to comment on maybe what my thoughts were? Ariel Waters. A child playing the snake hole in the ground. Oh! That makes way more sense. Like, hold on, Daxton sent me a picture of what this looks like. But yeah, like a snake, like a child playing next to, like, the snake den, right? Not the hole of the actual snake, like its mouth or whatever, because that would be weird. That makes so much sense. Thank you for helping me actually visualize that a bit better, because that made no sense to my brain. So thank you. Also, I don't exactly know who you are, but welcome. I'm so grateful you're here. The first time I've seen you chat in, so I'm so glad you're here with me and here with us studying. For those of you who don't know, yeah, this cockatrice, however you say it, is like this weird like bird raptor thing. It's pretty terrifying. Anjanette. Oh, Anjanette! Your name shows as Ariel Waters. Sorry. Good to see you. I'm glad you could join here. I'm so grateful you're here. Yeah, name shows as Ariel Waters, which is maybe just how your account is set up, which is totally fine. It doesn't bother me. Just didn't know who you were. But thank you so much. That gives me a lot better clarity of how that makes sense. Right? Still kind of goes in line with the fact that like each one of those is definitely pitted against each other in the symbolism that Isaiah is painting here. And each one is kind of right. Each one is a danger to the other in a sense. And I think that still provides some interesting analysis that you can kind of dive into in terms of looking at it and being in terms of being a peacemaker. Cool. So let's move on to kind of this section here, because it does dive into more about chapter 21 here that we're kind of already focused on. So the Lord is gathering his people, right? So we're gonna focus specifically on the last part of this chapter for 9 through 12, towards the end of the chapter. So Nephi and his family were witnesses to the scattering of Israel. Now you can participate in the gathering of Israel. As you read 2 Nephi 21, 9 through 12, think about how you can help fulfill the prophecies these verses describe. For example, as you read about the ensign, or standard, or banner that will be raised to gather God's people, think about how you have seen God gather his people physically and spiritually. What attracts people to the Lord and his church? What do you feel inspired to do to help gather God's people? Okay, so 2 questions we're going to answer. First, what attracts people to the Lord and his restored church on the earth? Right. I'm going to write this down. And we got a surplus of missionaries here, which I'm sure will be great at answering this question. Okay. You guys want me to read this again? You want a refresher, or do you want to just kind of read it by yourself real quick, and then we can talk about it? What do you think? I'll read it again if you want to listen to my beautiful voice. I'm not sure how beautiful it is, but I'll read it again if you want me to. Does anybody care? Well, All right, if y'all don't care, I'm going to read it again because I'm going to read it for me, and you can listen. So, 9 through 12. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people, to which shall the Gentiles seek, and to his rest shall be glorious. And his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt, and from Pathros and from Cush, and from Elam and from Shinar, and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. What do you guys think? So it kind of, talked about it already, right? Something I think is kind of cool is that it talks about the fact that that the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea, right? The waters cover the sea. The water is the sea, so it covers everything. Everything in the sea, the water covers it all. In the sea, right? I'm not talking about land, in the sea, right? The knowledge of the Lord will cover the earth, right? It'll cover everything. It'll be everywhere, right? I think that's really cool. Also, if you don't know what this is referring to as the root of Jesse, right? Jesse, the root of Jesse that kind of comes out, and there's a lot of symbolism behind this in Isaiah, as well as, I believe most of it's in Isaiah, actually. It might be somewhere else. But there's another scripture that talks about this, that talks about the root of Jesse and the root of Joseph. Or stick of Jesse and stick of Joseph, I think is how that works. The root of Jesse is essentially what we would what we would call nowadays as the record being the Bible, right? So the Bible comes out, and the Gentiles seek for the Bible. Is essentially what this, as you know, the Bible is the ensign, and then the Gentiles seek for the ensign, and his rest shall be glorious. If anybody has more knowledge on that topic and wants to correct me, go for it. I would love to be educated if I am wrong. And it talks about the fact that the Lord shall set his hand again for a second time to recover the remnant of the people that left from all of these places, from everywhere. He will recover everybody, which I think is really cool. And he will set up an ensign. And you could say maybe this is a second ensign that could be maybe construed as the Book of Mormon. And shall assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of Israel. He's going to gather his people together, right? So we know and we believe that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the restored church of the earth. It's Christ's church on the earth, and it is what God is going to gather everybody to, right? Israel is going to be gathered to the church. We're going to gather together. Okay, so in this question, what attracts people to the Lord, first of all, and what attracts people to his church? If the missionaries here want to chime in, now is a great time, because y'all be teaching. Even if you're just service missionaries, y'all still be teaching by your example. What attracts people to the Lord and his church? Even non-missionaries can chime in too. That's great. We all missionaries anyway. What do you guys think? Let's go to the questions. These are the questions. What are you talking about? Am I that delayed? That you just barely got to like me? Okay, hold on. Daxton. I think what attracts people to the Lord and His church is our willingness to serve others and help them no matter what our differences are. And hell, you're always so happy and have a different light. If you're telling me that I'm always so happy, I don't necessarily know about that. I try to be happy, but it's not always. I definitely think you're right though. The willingness to serve other people and that willingness to help your fellow man is absolutely something that is a lot of the time very different about us in the church. I wouldn't say that it is necessarily unique to the church or a unique aspect of members of the church, but I would say that it is a very distinct attribute of people who are followers of Christ and who have the light of Christ in them, regardless of if they're members of the church or not. And I think that is just so much more evident in members of the church, more so than maybe other Christian religions, because we try to not just be Sunday saints. We try not to just like show up on Sunday and then throughout the week and just not actually practice what we're teaching or practice what we're preaching. Right? We actually strive to live according to the gospel that we believe in. Absolutely. What else would you guys say attracts people to the church? We'll move on here in just a second to the second question. I think personally, one of the things that I wrote down was specifically the joy that the church brings, that the gospel, the true gospel brings to people's lives. I think that and that comes with that light that kind of grows inside of our countenances, our spirits, right? The joy that we have, a lot of people will look at us and go, how are you so joyful or happy when your life is garbage, when you're going through so many hard things, when you're struggling? How could you still be happy? How could you still have some semblance of joy, right? Daxton says the Book of Mormon brings joy. Book of Mormon and the joy it brings. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. Book of Mormon is fantastic, being another testament of Jesus Christ, right? Being additional knowledge of our Lord and Savior, more than just the Bible. That makes us very, very unique, right? We, as a missionary and preacher my gospel, there's a statement that says the cornerstone, or the Book of Mormon is the cornerstone of our religion, meaning that without the Book of Mormon, everything falls apart in terms of, Joseph Smith being a prophet, modern day revelation, modern day prophets, right? The Book of Mormon is the part that kind of holds it all together. It's also the thing that makes us unique. It is no other church really on this earth believes in modern day scripture like we do. Absolutely. I was saying I think also the other thing that helps, and that kind of goes along with the Book of Mormon, right, is the fact that we have additional truth, right? We have truth and that truth shines brightly inside each one of us that believe it, and that's that testimony. I think we because we have a testimony of God's plan. Absolutely, Antoinette. Absolutely. I also think that it's very interesting because that you bring that up, because most other Christian religions believe in a different version of God's plan, right? Most people believe in terms of what happens after this life is that it's heaven and hell and that's it. And most people, a lot of Christian religions believe that if you're not baptized, you immediately go to hell, which is why they always baptize people at infancy, right? They believe that you have to be baptized, at infancy because of Adam's original sin, Adam and Eve's original sin, right? But they don't necessarily believe in an afterlife or in a post-mortal life in the same way that we do. We believe that everybody has an opportunity that lives on this earth to live in a state of what others might consider a heaven, right? Our three kingdoms. All of the three kingdoms are described by Joseph as better than the mortal world we live in right now. All three of them. So, in some essence, everybody here that's on this mortal earth, with the exception of very, very few people, will inherit a kingdom of glory that has been prepared for them, which is incredible. It shows that God truly loves all of his people, not just those that are in his church, and not just those that have been baptized, not just those that believe in Christ. Every single person. Absolutely. So, in talking about this, right, what do you guys feel that you can do this week? This week. The next, or better yet, in the next couple weeks, because we'll be gone next week. So the next 2 weeks before I stream again, we gather together again. The next 2 weeks, what is something you feel you can do specifically to help gather God's people? Small, big, doesn't matter. What's something that you can do? Antoinette would be a good example. Absolutely. What are you going to do, Antoinette, this week to be a better example than the one that you already are? What's something that you can change in your life, or something that you can make more of an effort to do on a daily basis that will help you to shine your light as bright as you can in the next couple weeks? Daxon says, I can strike a conversation with the random guy in line at Maverick and talk about the gospel and tell him about this amazing book called the Book of Mormon. You can, Daxon. You absolutely can. And I will highly encourage you to do that as a missionary. I know personally, and speaking for probably a lot of, some people here, that may not be our forte, is approaching random people in a gas station. I had a hard time of doing that just on my mission, even when I wore the name tag, right? Street contacting was not my thing. Was not good at it. Not super great. But you can absolutely do that, and that will be amazing, right? And I would encourage you to encourage you to do so and testify with all the strength of your soul to how much you love the Book of Mormon and the gospel. Absolutely. I think for me, me and my dad have an opportunity this coming week, which is why we'll be gone next week. Is I'm going on vacation. Me and my dad will have the opportunity to go visit with a good friend of mine that I met on my mission, named Mark, and we'll have the opportunity to spend some time as well with my older brother, who is currently not active in the church. And I think that for me, one of the things I'm going to strive to do this next couple weeks is really strive to be an example in studying my scriptures as I'm on vacation, even though that's something I struggle with even while I've been at home, right? But I think it's something that I can really make a point to do is while I'm gone, is to make sure that I praise the Lord every day I'm gone, every day, and make that a habit starting today. And hopefully while I'm on vacation, I'll do that. And when I come back, I'll still do that. That's the hope, right? I think that that's something I can strive to do. Hold on, guys. I will be right back. I've got actually someone knocking at my door. Give me just a second. Feel free to chat with yourselves. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Daxton. You have to have the faith and trust in God. He puts people where he needs them. And you will put them in your path and help gather Israel. Absolutely. And Daxton taking guesses at people that answered the door, that were at the door. So it was actually a couple people from my singles word that were stopping by, just trying to get to know, I guess, me in general. I just chatted them for a few seconds. I'm gonna continue to communicate with them via text and whatnot. Just a couple leaders from the YSA award here that wanted to stop by and get to know me and my roommates. So anyway, not a big deal. I did tell them that I was doing this stream, so whatever. If they wanted to watch, I guess. But we're kind of at the end here. Antoinette, I'm going to be on a trip with a group of friends that aren't LDS. I can be a good example in front of them. I need to also allow them to see me kneel in prayer and read my scriptures. Yeah, I think that definitely, I definitely think that reading your scriptures is definitely really important. Like I said, for me, I want to be that example as I'm going on my trip, to be able to more dedicatedly, I guess, read my scriptures and pray. I don't necessarily think it is it's not mandatory by any means to make sure that they see you do those things, but I think that if you're committed to do them and to be that example, even if they see you or not, they'll notice. Even if they see you read your scriptures and pray, even if they don't, it doesn't matter, because you will have that commitment in your soul, and it will shine. It'll shine as a light, as you're on vacation, right? Absolutely. Any last minute comments from you guys? Only heard from really Daxton and my Aunt Jeanette here. I know that I've got 3 or 4 other missionaries here. My dad's here. What else? Any last minute comments from you guys on how you're going to commit to helping gather God's people in the next couple weeks? No, that's all right. So I do want to thank you guys for joining me. I know that it was kind of a weird schedule change this week with doing it today instead of doing it Wednesday, as that is normally when I do the stream. We will be back. We won't be back next week. I'll be out of town, like I said. We will be back on the 20th. Yes, 20th. So March 20th is when I lie. We'll be back on the 19th. We're going to do another Tuesday stream. The reason being is because I have signed up to do a specific institute course for seminary teaching. And that actually takes place on the 20th at the same time that I would be doing this. So we're going to come back on the 19th. We'll do another Tuesday stream, and then we'll be back to the normal Wednesdays after that, the week after on the 27th. So look forward for that. I'll have that scheduled up here on the stream on the YouTube channel here, so you guys can go ahead and click the notification bell or whatever to see that so just again, no stream next week. We'll be back on the 19th, and then the 27th we'll resume our normal Wednesday schedule. So I absolutely love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and studying the scriptures with me today. I hope that you guys have a fantastic week this week and next, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks again to build your ark. Thank you so much. Have a great night.